Right, we're looking at the last bit of this little series of 3 about lighting, and some exterior sort of sun settings. This is just going to be the grid type Troffer type light, and just adjust some of the settings as well. So if you can hear a little rumble in the background, that's the washing machine going. What I've done is I've got the grid in, as we know. I've also put some floor lamps in, some desks and some table lamps. So just adjusted the height of the table lamp from the floor level, otherwise it sits on the floor. These are simple little desks, and these floor lamps sit there. I've also got my underlay looking up so I can see these sconces. Select underlay elements, we should be able to do that. So if I can pick on the sconce, now it's not allowing me to do that, but if we look at the section, then we can see what we've got. So these are the sconces. That's kind of in the wrong sort of position there. Just delete that one. So we've got a few on the wall. Let's try and make this look a little bit like someone's thought about it. There you go. Go back to the floor plan. We've got some on this wall. I've also set up a camera, so right click on the 3D view to show camera, and this is what we're picking up. So if I go to this view, so we've got a range of lights, from floor lamps to wall lights, and we need to put some of these Troffer type things in here. So let's go back to our ceiling plan so we can see the grid. And if I go to my component and cancel that, and then look at the lighting, the sort of thing you want to look for is this: lighting fixtures, a Troffer, parabolic square Troffer. 2 lamps or 4 lamps. Let's pick the 4 lamper. Let's try and make it a little bit brighter in there. And then you just drop this in. It doesn't necessarily sort of attach to the grid. It'll jump every 100 mil. And so as these are slightly offset, it's not going to sort of jump into the position. But if I pop one in there and one here, and let's move one to there as well, it's not slightly not necessarily well considered, but we've got a random grid going on. Maybe I can move them up and move them across, but this will do for the purposes of this. Back to our 3D view, so now you can see them in the ceiling. This is what they look like, the sort of things we've got in the JL105 in the ceiling. They're all slightly different, but they do emit light. Okay, and they've got this reflective interior bit. So I'll just do a quick render, and interior artificial only. I'll change that to medium for quick render, and then let's just see what we get. And I'll still come back to it in a second. It's lit. You can just see some light coming from these. It's not very well lit, but it does give a level of illumination, and you can see the floor lamps, this chrome sort of effect floor light, and this sort of polished metal desk light as well, with a bit of reflection coming on from that. So this is a sort of view that we're gonna get from this. So about 1 minute 20, 1 minute 30 to get something of this sort of quality. Then we can look at the exposure and crank it up a little bit, make it slightly brighter, too bright, and play around with it as we've done before. But you can see there's not much light coming from these things, even though it does give it sort of a wash around the room. If we didn't necessarily have these, would probably be a lot darker. Let's just see what it looks like if we turn these things off. So under artificial lights, these are the parabolic Troffers, so that one down to there, and let's just untick those. Okay, and then do another render, see how dark it is without them, whether it's made any difference whatsoever. Yeah, quite a bit darker. Okay, far more atmospheric, but you can see those Troffers, even though they're kind of, I think this light is the reflection of these things, so it's not actually reflecting from the thing itself. So this is what you get without those turned on. Just turn that off, show the close that, show the model. Let's turn them back on. Okay, so that's okay. So they're all selected. Shift select, and then they highlight. Click on one of them, and you're good to go. So what I'm going to do now is just adjust one of these. They're all the same thing. So adjust the type, and they'll all update. This is 80 watts at 80 lumens per watt. What this means, I thought I'd change up to 40, so it will be much dimmer, but we'll crank this up to maybe 100 watts at the output. And the efficacy, as I have been doing a little bit of research, is the amount of visible light that we get per watt. Okay, so there's 100 watts of output of power coming through this, and 80 lumens per watt. So that's 8,000 sort of lumen watts coming from one of these things. And it's the visible light that we get from this. It's taken into consideration all sorts of different things, the angle of decay and lots of other things. So, but look it up if you're that interested. On the efficacy, it's there's general efficacy, and then there's efficacy based on lighting. We could play around with these settings, but I'll leave that to you to sort of have a look at. So 100 watts. We might change this as well to 100. Let's see how much brighter we can get it, and say OK. So that's made it slightly more sort of powerful. Apply that, OK, and quick render again. I won't take this all the way through, but we should see a lot brighter. But again, still nothing looking like this is glowing as such. We can't see the light inside glowing. Okay, so that's something that you might want to consider. How you do that is probably put a little object in there and make it self-illuminating, and then that would sort of affect the look of the light. But you can have a play around with that with material settings should you wish to. I'm just going to stop that. So I'll say yes to stopping that and close that down. So that's pretty much it as far as this lighting thing goes. I did create one earlier on, which was it was on for about 20 minutes and it still hadn't finished. I'd set the levels to 20, and that was this one. And you know, it's not that great. You've got some nicer looking light coming off here. You got some sort of little shadows and some sort of lighting being thrown around there. These things being cranked up, and these are now showing what looks like light coming from them. Okay, so you can get a reasonable thing, and if I'd been bothered to put decent wall finish on, skirtings, architraves and carpet and all that sort of stuff, people inside, it might look half decent with a bit of effort. Okay, so that's pretty much an overview of lighting. Feel free to explore the things, but there's enough covered in these 3 videos to give you a head start with it. The rest of it's down to materiality and how your space is mapped out.